Hello, you're watching Movie Snapshot Scenes, and this is the summary of Looper 2012. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. The world isn't destroyed in 2044, but it's also not great either. The gap between the rich and the poor has grown into a canyon. The towns are broken and the fields are dying. Another person, named Joe, walks through all of this chaos. A criminal group from the future in the year 2074 hires loopers as killers. Back then, people can move through time, but it's against the law. The gangs use it behind closed doors to send back targets they want to erase. The looper's job is to kill them as soon as they show up. Simple, clean, and effective. No body, no proof. Joe waits in a farm outside of Kansas with his blunderbuss shotgun next to him. There is a cover on the ground. He looks at his watch. After a while, a man in chains and a hood comes out of nowhere. For Joe, the gun goes off. The man falls to the ground dead, and Joe's payment silver bars fall from his jacket. He puts them away, cleans up, and goes on with his day. That's what loopers do. It's cold, mechanical, making money. But everyone in Loop knows one secret. One day, your future self will be sent back to kill you in order to close your loop. You'll get paid more, but your time is up. You have 30 years left to live your life however you choose before the gang locks up the end of your time. A lot of people act like they don't care. Joe doesn't believe it either, until it happens to him. Joe wants to run away to France and start over, but he needs to save enough coins first. He works on his accuracy during the day and sleeps with a dancer named Susie in dark bars at night, until the loop gets tighter. He's calm and detached. When Joe's friend Seth doesn't close his loop, letting his older self get away, the gang punishes him. They take the younger Seth and start cutting messages into his skin. Those messages show up right away on Seth's older body somewhere in the city, making him crawl back. The penalty is terrible. Joe looks on, scared. It's very clear. Don't let your loop run. A few days later, Joe shows up for another normal job. He checks his watch, loads his blunderbuss, and waits. But when his target shows up, there's no hood on him. There's just a man with grey hair, familiar eyes, and a knowing look. It's him, but aged 30 years. With the silver on his back, old Joe moves quickly to block the blast. He quickly knocks young Joe out and then disappears into the fields. Joe has failed to close his loop, which was not possible. He is now being chased. The gang wants him to die. His self from the future has a job to do. The fate of everything they'll ever love is somewhere between them. The loop is beginning to fall apart. Joe wakes up in a field, hurt and confused. His blunderbuss is lying in the ground next to him. There is nothing in the top. His goal, his older self, is no longer there. He feels panicked all at once. He knows what this means. He has failed. In the game Loopers, you will die if you don't close your loop. It will not be forgiven by the gang. He needs to leave quickly. He runs back to the city, which is a neon-lit wasteland with broken roads and tech that only works half the time. On the streets, junkies line the alleys, and beggars wave metal bits for food. Hoverbikes buzz above. Joe stays out of sight while he thinks about what to do next. He knows that the gang's armed guards, called Gatmen, will already be looking for him. Abe is their boss. He is someone sent from the future to run the loopers in this time. From the top of an old club, he runs the city's underground. He is both charming and cruel. Joe breaks into his flat, opens the floorboards, and takes the silver bars that are hiding there. Outside, you can hear the sound of cars. It's too late. Gatmen are already everywhere in the building. He runs out the window and into the busy streets, but they can't catch him because he's gone. At the same time, old Joe moves very precisely in another part of the city. He's not lost or confused. He's there for a reason. Years of loss and pain weigh on him. In his time, 2074, he met a woman who helped him. She made him feel better and gave him a reason to live. Things changed, though, when the Rainmaker took over. A mystery person called the Rainmaker took over the criminal world and started to close all loops, sending each looper's past self back to be killed. The gang broke into old Joe's house when it was his turn. His wife was killed, and he was so angry that he was caught and sent back to die. Now that it's 2044, old Joe only has one job to do: find the child who will become the Rainmaker and kill him before he can ruin the future. The younger Joe hides in an empty building and dreams of what could be a life of luxury in France, freedom and getting out of the loop. But that time has passed. No longer is it only the gang after him. He's also being chased by himself. It gets dark. The city lights blink like stars that are going out. Old Joe looks in hospitals, birth records, and whispers from sources to find hints. Joe, who is young, follows his gut because he wants to stay living. now that he knows his older self is moving, he wants to find him first. If he can do that, he might be able to stop this loop on his own terms. The same man in two different ways. One is fighting for his future, and the other is trying to change the past. They are going to run into each other. As the city falls apart under the weight of its own future, time itself turns against it. There is a haze of smoke and bright lights over the city of 2044. Digital billboards show Joe's face on wanted ads that flicker. It is clear what the man meant. He broke the loop. Every Gatman, looper, and person who works the streets is looking for him. Still, his older self is out there somewhere, free and dangerous, driven and smart. With a cut on his arm, Joe moves through the dark. He hides in an empty building and uses torn fabric to protect himself. His mind is racing. No matter how many people he kills, they will all end up back at him. And when the gang finds him, they won't spare him. They'll just bury him in a shallow hole and be quiet. Old Joe is looking at a small piece of paper that was the only sign he brought back from the future. The numbers 3. Birth certificates. The coordinates. The boy who will become the Rainmaker is somewhere in these 3 kids. One day, this child will rule with fear and fire. Old Joe swears to himself. He does this because he loves you, not because he hates you. For his wife, for the better future she deserved. He will kill anyone to protect her. Young Joe, on the other hand, doesn't have that goal. He's stuck because of the mistakes he's made. He goes to see Beatrix, an old friend who runs a low-level drug den. The woman tells him that Abe's men are searching every street and offering money to anyone who helps them. She tells him, "You should have finished the job." Joe agrees with her. That would be like killing a mirror, though. Joe hides in a diner off the highway at dawn. It feels like dust and old coffee. He waits, and then something strange happens. He can feel him. The air gets tighter. A man in his 60s walks in through the glass door wearing a worn-out jacket. His face shows the years and loss that he has been through. They look at each other. It looks like the world has stopped. A man in 2 different forms sitting next to each other for the first time. Their talk is tight and very sharp. With a grin, old Joe says, "You still have that look. Like you believe you are smarter than time." Young Joe shoots back, "And you look like a man who lost everything but still thinks he can change it." There is a truth about the Rainmaker that old Joe tells him. The Rainmaker is trying to kill the child who turns into that monster. Young Joe won't listen, though. He can't believe it. "You're killing kids. Do you think that makes you a hero?" Old Joe's eyes get red. "It sets me free." All of a sudden, Gatmen with guns rushed into the diner. Time starts to move. Glass is broken by bullets. Old Joe jumps out the back and fires back. Young Joe runs through the smoke, his heart beating fast. Now both Joes are on the run. One from the gang and the other from fate. The hunt is still going on. It's getting tighter and pulling them toward their own fate, which they can't get away from. After the chaos at the diner, Joe rides through rows and rows of bright wheat fields. The wind cuts through his jacket. He's no longer in the city, so you can't reach him for now. The sun is orange in the sky, and he can see a single farmhouse standing in the wind. He goes there, hurt, bleeding, and tired, hoping to hide, even if only for the night. Sarah owns the farm. She is a tough, independent woman who doesn't get scared easily. When Joe passes out near her barn, she finds him shaking and pointing a gun at her. She doesn't freak out. Instead, she gives him a cold look. "Your blood is on my field," she says. "You need help or a grave." Joe puts down his gun because he doesn't know if he's found a friend or a new threat. From the inside, the farmhouse looks old and is full of life. There is dirty sunlight, old furniture, and the sound of cicadas. Sarah lives by herself with her quiet son, Sid. Sid is very smart for his age and has eyes that look right through you. Joe watches as Sid plays with small toys. Sid's moves are slow, focused, and odd. There's something about the boy that drives him crazy. Sarah cleans up Joe's wound and lets him stay for a short time, but only if he doesn't attack her boy. Joe says he will, but his interest wins out. He watches Sid play the next day from the porch. Something impossible happens when Sid gets angry. Things around him shake, and one of his toys floats for a second before falling to the ground. Joe's eyes get bigger. People with small amounts of telekinetic strength are called TKs, but this is different. Sid has raw, powerful, and scary power. In other places, old Joe keeps working on his sad quest. He goes after the first child on his list, a boy who lives in a quiet neighborhood with a kind mother. The innocent look in the child's eyes makes him think twice before pulling the trigger, but he pushes himself forward. He says it's okay because it will save millions of lives in the future. The walls are covered in blood. The first name is crossed out. Sarah tells Joe the truth back at the farm. Of course, she says she didn't give birth to Sid. She found him after his mother was killed. She thinks Sid is unique and maybe even dangerous, but she loves him very much. Joe starts to think that this boy might be the Rainmaker of the future, the person that old Joe is looking for. As night falls, Joe sits on the porch by himself and looks out over the sky. The child, the woman, and the goal are all coming together. There will be blood at the end of the loop if old Joe finds this farm. But young Joe feels something strange for the first time, the pull of a choice, one that might be able to stop the loop or kill them all. Slow and tense, the days on the farm go by slowly. During his free time, Joe fixes fences, cleans guns, and keeps an eye on the tree line for any movement. He knows that old Joe is still looking, and that he will find this place at some point. Still, something starts to change inside him. The farm seems to have been spared the damage of the city. It's a quiet place in a world where violence and greed are bringing it all down. Sarah works the land with quiet strength. Joe doesn't tell her anything about his past when she asks. But at night, when candles are lit, the space between them gets smaller. She talks about Sid, her son, and the strange power that scares her. Things move, walls crack, and sometimes the air itself screams when he loses control. He's not bad, she says, shaking her head. He's scared. People will come after him if they find out who he is. Joe hears her and knows how close she is to the danger she is afraid of. People will hunt, fear, and use guys like Sid in the future. He can remember the man's name, Rainmaker, and how old Joe said the man had a fake jaw because of an injury he got as a child. That fact gives him chills. For the first time, he thinks, could this boy really turn into that monster? As he watches Sid play in the yard. At the same time, old Joe keeps walking violently through the farmland. 2 of the 3 kids on his list have already been killed. Every time, the guilt gets stronger. But the thought of his wife, her face, her words, and her touch takes him further. He tells himself that he's dying to save her. What he tells himself is that the ends are worth the means. He knows that time won't forgive him, though. Every death makes waves go back in time. At dusk, young Joe shows Sid how to control his breathing, in the hopes that it will help the boy stop acting out. Sid gets close to him because he sees Joe as a guardian. Sid is running across the field one afternoon when he hears a noise far away that scares him. A Gap man sent by Abe walks up to the house and points a gun at the land around it. As soon as the door opens, Joe moves quickly and pulls Sid into the basement. The Gap man charges inside and yells directions. Sarah hides behind a wall with a gun in her hand. Joe does nothing but wait and listen to the man's steps. A scream came from upstairs, but it wasn't from a person. It was from something else. The ground shakes. It's raining dust from the roof. Sid stands at the top of the stairs, his eyes shining and his power out. When the Gap man jumps into the air, blood pours out of his nose and his body twists fiercely before exploding into red mist. Then it's quiet. Joe just stares in shock and fear. Sarah runs to Sid and whispers in his ear to calm down. As she holds him, the room quiets down and the sounds fade. Joe finally gets it. This kid is more than just powerful. He has the power, the ability to destroy or change everything. Old Joe is now coming after him. It gets dark on the farm. There is a lot of stress in the thick air. Joe is sitting on the porch with his blunderbuss on his knees. Crickets are chirping in the background. He can feel the pull of the loop getting tighter around him. This point has been reached after every road choice and bullet fired. Old Joe is getting closer somewhere out there, and somewhere inside the barn sleeps the child who will one day decide the end of time. Sarah quietly looks out the window at Joe. In his eyes, she can see the storm getting worse. She says in a soft voice, "You're planning something." He doesn't say otherwise. Joe says, "He's coming. Maybe you and the boy have a chance if I can stop him before he gets here." Sarah turns her head. "Do you really believe that killing your older self will change the future?" Joe looks at her with a hurtful half smile. "I've always been good at that one thing." Old Joe rides through the night on a stolen motorbike that sounds like an animal from miles away. The lights of the city are now far away. 2 children have died, leaving only one name on his list. He can go straight to Sarah's farm from the last number. The picture of his wife is in the ring that he wears around his neck. "For you," he says as he runs quickly into the dark. The world stops moving at dawn. Sarah wakes up early because she feels like something bad is about to happen. Joe is already outside, looking at the horizon when she gets there. Sid is quiet as he sits on the doorsteps. His eyes show fear, but they also show something old and awake. Joe tells him, "Don't be scared. People like him and me, We choose badly. You can be different, though. Sid nods, but his little hands are shaking. Do you think he's coming? Joe looks ahead at the road. Okay, he's coming. Soon, the morning quiet will be broken by the sound of an engine. At the edge of the field, old Joe walks up. His coat is blowing in the wind, and his face is hard from loss. He points his gun at the house and raises it. He doesn't want to talk. He has come to end the future before it starts. Old Joe shoots at Sarah, but she barely avoids being hit as she runs to protect Sid. The world blows up when the boy screams. Joe is knocked off his feet by the boom. The air shakes, trees bend, and dust swirls into a tornado. Sid's power has come back to life. Pure, unchecked anger. Old Joe falls backward and can hardly stand up. He raises his gun and points it at the kid floating above the ground, his eyes white with fear. As Joe watches in fear, he realizes that this very moment is the spark that will make the Rainmaker. He sees everything at once. Old Joe's bullet killing Sarah, the boy's scream of pain and anger, his power being released, and the man he will become, a circle of violence that is fed by fear and loss, the same loop that never ends. Joe raises his blunderbuss and points it at old Joe. He then stops moving. Killing him won't make things better. The shape has already been made by time. The loop stops, though, if he takes himself out of the equation. Old Joe aims once more. Sarah puts her body between Sid and the bullet. That's when Joe makes his choice. He points his gun at himself in the chest. He takes one last breath. He says, I saw what he turns into. I knew what I had to do. The shot can be heard all over the field. The blast is final and unchangeable. Old Joe disappears, is no longer there. Sid falls into Sarah's arms, shaking but still living. The storm ends. The wind stops. Sarah kneels next to Joe's body and her tears mix with the dirt. She holds her son close and looks out at the empty sky. There is a break in the loop, but as always, the price of freedom is everything. The country is very quiet in the morning after a storm. A soft wind blows through the wheat, bringing the faint smell of smoke and gunpowder. Even though the sun is rising, it feels weak and wary, like the sky itself knows what was lost here. Sarah is sitting on the porch with Sid asleep in her arms. It's been hours since she moved. Inside her chest, the screams, the gunshot, and the sudden silence that followed from last night are still there. The dark, heavy earth around Joe's body in the field has not been touched. Sarah shuts her eyes and prays in a low voice, but she doesn't know who she's talking to. God, time, or maybe the man who died for them. Almost everyone tries to avoid fate, but Joe did the impossible. He faced it. There is a lot of damage inside the farmhouse from the fight. Glass is broken and furniture is thrown around. It's broken in the middle, so Sarah can see both the woman she was yesterday and the woman she needs to become now in the mirror near the kitchen. She gets up, gently puts Sid on the couch, and then goes outside. Joe's silver bars shine in the dirt because of the light. She thinks for a moment about taking them and using them to start over in a faraway place. After that, she stops. That silver is the loop of greed, death, and life. It doesn't fit with the life she wants to give her son. She buried Joe next to the property line, under an old oak tree. She digs until her hands hurt because the ground is soft. When she's done, she just stands there, her hair moving in the wind. She says, "You saved him. You kept us safe." When they get back to the house, Sid wakes up from a restless sleep. His eyes are shaking with fear and confusion. He remembers flashes of things like his mother yelling, the guy with the gun, and the sudden surge of power that erased everything. He looks out the window and sees the small hill under the tree. "Isn't he gone now?" he asks. Sarah gets down on her knees next to him and runs her hand through his hair. "Yes, kid, he did it for you, though." Sid looks down, and his voice is very quiet. "I hurt people." Sarah turns her head. "No, you slipped up. There's a change. What you do next is important." The days go by. The world outside the farm goes on as usual, not realizing that time has changed. The city's control by the syndicate weakens. Rumors spread that Abe was sent back in time and his plan fell apart. Perhaps the Rainmaker is gone from the world, erased before he could be a danger. Sid and Sarah fix what's broken. Her job is to teach him how to calm down and use his strength for good instead of evil. At night, when the sky is full of faraway city lights, she tells him stories about a man who fought time itself, but not with hate, but with choice. Still, when the air is still, Sid dreams of a different version of himself that is older, colder, and filled with anger. He wakes up soaked in sweat and scared of what he could turn into. Every time, Sarah holds him close to comfort him. She says in a whisper, "You don't have to go that way. Someone thought you could do better, so the loop is broken." The seasons shift. Wheat changes color from gold to green to brown and back to gold. The farm gets calmer, but still living. Sid learns to keep his power in check and slowly moves small things through the air. When he smiles, birds land on the windowsill. Sarah feels hope for the first time. One night, as the sun goes down behind the hills, Sid goes to the oak tree where Joe is resting. He drops to his knees and sets down a small toy. It's the same toy he used to make float when he was mad. He says in a soft voice, "Thank you. I'll fix it." Sarah looks with tears in her eyes from the porch. The sky is a deep red color that looks like a wound being closed. Time doesn't loop anymore. It goes. Even though the land, their hearts, and the unseen strings of history are still scarred, something new starts to grow. This boy, who could have turned into a monster, learns to be kind. The woman who was scared of the future gains hope. And the man who lived by killing finally finds peace in the ground that holds him. The world breathes out for the first time in a very long time. There is no more loop. Finally, the story goes on.